Security cameras captured the exact moment a billionaire CEO was dragged across a luxury hotel lobby like a criminal, and the staff had no idea who they just destroyed. What happens when wealth hides behind worn jeans? When power doesn't wear designer labels? You're about to witness a single afternoon that ended careers, sparked a viral firestorm, and exposed the ugly truth about how we judge people before knowing their stories. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The Chicago wind cut through the streets like broken glass that November afternoon, whipping trash against concrete and sending pedestrians ducking into doorways. Elena Brooks stood outside the Grand Meridian Hotel, staring up at its gleaming tower of steel and reflective windows that seemed to scrape the belly of gray clouds overhead. She'd been traveling for 19 hours straight, London to New York to Chicago. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. The oversized cardigan she wore, Mason's cardigan, actually, the navy one he'd left at her apartment 6 months ago, hung loose around her frame. Her jeans had a small rip near the left knee. Not the fashionable kind. The actual, these jeans are old and I should probably replace them kind. Her sneakers were worse. White canvas, now gray with age and stained with what might have been coffee from 3 weeks ago when she'd spilled her morning latte in the London office parking garage. Elena caught her reflection in the hotel's massive front windows, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup except the faint smudge of mascara she'd applied yesterday morning in a different time zone. She looked, objectively, like hell, but she didn't care. Mason was inside. Her husband, the man she hadn't seen in 6 weeks while she'd been bouncing between board meetings in 3 different countries. The quiet, brilliant man who somehow understood that her empire of manufacturing plants and international contracts didn't define her any more than his hotel empire defined him. The doorman's eyes tracked her as she approached. Not welcoming eyes, assessing eyes. Elena had seen that look before, though usually directed at other people. The slight narrowing. The micro-expression that said, "Do you belong here?" She pushed through the rotating doors anyway. The Grand Meridian's lobby hit like a physical force. Marble floors polished to mirror brightness stretched 40 feet to a reception desk made of what looked like carved obsidian. Crystal chandeliers, not the gaudy kind, but the subtle, expensive kind that cost more than cars, cast warm light across leather furniture and modern art installations that probably had names she couldn't pronounce. A couple in evening wear glided past her toward the elevators. The woman's dress probably cost 5 figures. The man's watch definitely did. Elena's sneakers squeaked against the marble. The sound felt deafening. She approached the reception desk where a woman in her mid-30s stood typing at a computer. Her name tag read, Jennifer Morrison, Guest Services Manager. Her suit was immaculate. Her hair was immaculate. Her expression, as she glanced up at Elena, was considerably less immaculate. It was the kind of look you give a stray dog that wandered somewhere it shouldn't. "Can I help you?" Jennifer's voice had that particular quality, professionally neutral but with an undertone that suggested Elena should probably turn around and leave. "I need a key card for the presidential suite," Elena said. Her voice came out rougher than intended. Exhaustion did that. Jennifer's perfectly shaped eyebrows lifted a fraction of an inch. "I'm sorry?" "The presidential suite. Ma'am, I'm going to stop you right there." Jennifer's smile was sharp enough to cut. "The presidential suite is currently occupied by the hotel owner. It's not available for booking." "I know it's occupied. I'm his wife." The words landed in the space between them like a stone dropping into still water. For exactly 3 seconds, Jennifer's expression didn't change. Then something shifted. Not belief. Something closer to pity mixed with annoyance. "I see." Jennifer's fingers steepled together on the desk. "Ma'am, we get this fairly regularly. People claiming connections to Mr. Reed. I understand you might be hoping—" "I'm not hoping anything. I'm stating a fact. My name is Elena Brooks. I'm Mason Reed's wife. I've been overseas on business, and I'm here to surprise him. If you could just call up to the suite and—" "Mr. Reed's wife," Jennifer interrupted, her voice dropping to a tone usually reserved for explaining things to children, "is a CEO, a very successful businesswoman. I've seen her photographs in business magazines." Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Those photographs are usually from corporate events where I'm dressed professionally. Right now I've been traveling for... Right now you're asking me to believe that Mason Reed's wife shows up to a five-star hotel looking like... Jennifer's eyes traveled deliberately down Elena's outfit and back up. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Looking like what? Elena heard her voice sharpen. Like someone who's been on 3 flights? Like someone who prioritizes comfort over impressing strangers? Looking, Jennifer said slowly, like someone who doesn't belong here. The lobby sounds seemed to dim. Elena became acutely aware of other guests nearby. A businessman at the concierge desk had turned slightly, watching. 2 women on the leather couches had paused their conversation. Get Mason on the phone, Elena said quietly. Just call the suite. He'll confirm. I will not disturb Mr. Reed based on the claims of someone who walked in off the street. Jennifer's professional mask was slipping now, revealing something uglier underneath. We have protocols to protect our high-profile guests from exactly this kind of situation. This kind of situation? I'm his wife. So you say. Jennifer reached for her phone. Not the desk phone. Her personal cell. Marco? Yeah, it's Jennifer at the front desk. I need security in the lobby. We have a situation. Elena's exhaustion evaporated, replaced by disbelief. You're calling security? Are you serious right now? Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. I am calm. I'm trying to get to my husband's room. Why is that? Because this is clearly some kind of scam. Jennifer's voice rose slightly. The businessman at the concierge desk was definitely watching now. So were the 2 women, and the couple waiting for the elevator. You're claiming to be Elena Brooks, but Elena Brooks wouldn't show up here dressed like... She gestured vaguely at Elena's entire existence. That. Heat flooded Elena's face. Not embarrassment. Anger. Pure, white-hot anger that started in her chest and spread outward until her hands shook. My clothing doesn't determine who I am. In a hotel like this? Actually, it kind of does. 2 security guards emerged from a side hallway. Both men, both built like they'd chosen their careers specifically because they enjoyed the physical aspects. The first one, name tag reading Derek, approached with his hand resting casually on the radio clipped to his belt. What's the problem, Jennifer? This woman is claiming to be Mr. Reed's wife. She's demanding access to the presidential suite. Derek's eyes moved to Elena. The assessment was instant and dismissive. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. I'm not leaving. I'm a guest here. Well, more than a guest, You're trespassing, Derek interrupted. That's what you are. Call Mason. Just pick up a phone and call him. He'll tell you exactly who I am. We're not disturbing hotel guests based on the demands of someone who's clearly trying to run some kind of con. The second guard, younger, tag-reading Mike, moved to Elena's other side. Not touching her yet, but close, uncomfortably close. Elena took a step back and found her path blocked by a large potted plant. This is insane. You're treating me like a criminal for trying to see my own husband. Your husband, Jennifer said from behind the desk, her voice dripping with skepticism. Right, tell me, Mrs. Reed, what's Mason's daughter's name? Sophia. She's 7 years old. She has his eyes and her mother's smile, and she's obsessed with marine biology right now. Last week, she made him watch a 3-hour documentary about octopuses. The specificity seemed to give Jennifer pause, but only for a second. Anyone could know that from social media. He doesn't post about her on social media. He's protective of her privacy because she lost her mother, and he doesn't want photographers following her around. Elena heard her voice crack slightly. Why am I explaining this to you? Just call him. Last chance, Derek said. Leave voluntarily or we remove you. I want to speak to your manager. I am the manager, Jennifer said coldly, and I'm telling you to leave. Elena pulled her phone from her cardigan pocket. Fine, I'll call him myself. Derek's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Not gently. No phones, you're leaving now. Get your hand off me. Elena tried to jerk away, but his grip tightened. Derek, Mike, please escort this woman out of the hotel. Jennifer had her phone up now, recording. For our records. Elena's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. She was Elena Brooks. She ran a manufacturing empire with operations in 14 countries. She'd negotiated contracts with Fortune 500 companies. She'd been featured in Forbes and Bloomberg, in the Wall Street Journal. and she was being thrown out of her husband's hotel because she wore the wrong clothes. Mike grabbed her other arm. Together, the two guards started walking her backward toward the entrance. "Stop," Elena said, then louder. "Stop! Let go of me!" The lobby had gone quiet. Every guest was watching now. Some had their phones out. A woman in a designer pantsuit whispered something to her companion, both of them staring. "I'm Elena Brooks," Elena's voice echoed off the marble. "I'm a CEO. I'm Mason Reed's wife. You can't just—" "Sure you are, lady." Derek's breath was hot against her ear. "And I'm the president." They dragged her past the concierge desk, past the leather couches where the two women had stopped even pretending not to stare, past a family with small children whose mother pulled them aside as if Elena was dangerous. Her sneaker caught on the marble and she stumbled. The guards didn't slow down. One of her arms twisted at an angle that sent pain shooting through her shoulder. "You're hurting me." "Should have left when you had the chance," Mike muttered. Elena saw the rotating doors getting closer, saw the cold Chicago street beyond, saw her reflection in the glass, a disheveled woman being manhandled by security while dozens of people watched and filmed and did absolutely nothing. Tears burned behind her eyes, not from pain, from humiliation, from the sheer absurdity of being treated like garbage in a hotel her husband owned. Her husband. Mason was upstairs right now, probably in a meeting or reviewing reports or playing with Sophia, completely unaware that his wife was being dragged across his lobby like... The executive elevator chimed. It was a different sound than the regular elevators. Deeper, more resonant. The kind of elevator reserved for ownership and VIPs, and people who paid $5,000 a night for suites. Elena twisted her head toward the sound. The polished steel doors slid open, and Mason Reed stepped out. Sits. He looked the same as always, dark hair slightly too long, reading glasses perched on his nose, dressed in what she called his comfortable business casual, nice jeans, a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie because he hated ties. He was looking at his phone, scrolling through something, not paying attention to the lobby. Then he glanced up. His eyes found Elena immediately, found her being held by two security guards 20 feet from the exit, her cardigan half off one shoulder, her hair falling out of its ponytail, her face red and tear-streaked. For one frozen moment, Mason didn't move. His expression cycled through confusion, recognition, and then something Elena had only seen a handful of times in their relationship, pure, incandescent rage. "Let her go!" His voice wasn't loud. Mason never yelled, but it cut through the lobby like a blade. "Let her go now!" Derek and Mike's hands released Elena's arms simultaneously as if she'd suddenly become electrified. Elena stumbled forward, catching herself against a marble column. Her whole body shook. Mason crossed the lobby in long strides, not running, but moving with absolute purpose. Guests scattered out of his path. He reached Elena, and his hands, gentle, always gentle, touched her face, her shoulders, checking for injuries. His eyes behind the reading glasses were dark with fury, but his touch was feather-light. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" Elena couldn't speak. The tears she'd been fighting broke free, and she collapsed against his chest, her fingers clutching his shirt. "I tried to tell them," she whispered. "I told them who I was." Mason's arms wrapped around her. One hand cradled the back of her head. She felt his chest rise and fall with carefully controlled breathing. Then he lifted his head and looked at the lobby. Every employee within sight suddenly found somewhere else to look, except Jennifer, still behind the reception desk, her face gone white as printer paper. "Someone," Mason said quietly, "is going to explain to me why my wife was being dragged out of my hotel." The lobby remained silent. The kind of silence that happens when everyone realizes they've witnessed something they shouldn't have. Several guests were still filming. The businessman at the concierge desk had his hand frozen halfway to his phone. Mason's arms remained around Elena, but she could feel the tension in his muscles, like a wire pulled taut, ready to snap. "Mr. Reed, Jennifer started. "Not you." Mason's eyes fixed on Derek, the lead security guard. "You. Explain." Derek's confidence had evaporated. He stood rigid, hands at his sides, looking like he wanted the marble floor to open up and swallow him. "Sir, we received a call from guest services that there was a situation." A situation. Yes, sir. A woman claiming to be your wife. Claiming. Mason's voice remained level, but something in it made Derek take an involuntary step backward. My wife was claiming to be herself, and you thought the appropriate response was to physically remove her from the building. We didn't know. You didn't know. You didn't bother to verify. You didn't call my suite. You didn't ask for identification. You just assumed that because she wasn't dressed the way you expected, she must be lying. Mason's hand moved in small, soothing circles on Elena's back while he spoke. The contrast between his gentle touch and the ice in his voice was jarring. Is that accurate? Derek's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Mason's eyes moved to Mike, who looked younger and progressively more terrified. Did you put your hands on her? Yes, sir, but... Did she resist? She tried to use her phone. Did she resist? No, sir. So you and your colleague grabbed a woman who posed no physical threat, who was simply trying to contact her husband, and you dragged her across this lobby while she told you exactly who she was. Mason's jaw clenched. Is that an accurate summary? Mike stared at his shoes. Mason looked past them to Jennifer. And you? You called security. Jennifer's professional composure had cracked completely. Mr. Reed, I sincerely apologize. I had no idea. You had no idea because you didn't bother to find out. Mason's voice cut through her apology like it wasn't there. You looked at my wife and decided she wasn't dressed appropriately for this hotel. You decided that her appearance was more important than her words. You decided that your judgment of her clothing mattered more than basic human decency. I was trying to protect you from from my own wife? From a woman who's been traveling for 19 hours to surprise me? From someone who has every right to be here? Mason's hand trembled slightly against Elena's back. She felt him force it to stillness. What exactly were you protecting me from, Jennifer? Jennifer's mouth worked soundlessly. Elena pulled back slightly from Mason's chest, enough to see his face. His expression was controlled, but she knew him. Knew the muscle jumping in his jaw, knew the way his breathing had gone shallow, knew that he was holding himself together by sheer force of will. Mason, she said softly, it's okay. I'm okay. It's not okay. His eyes met hers. None of this is okay. A new voice interrupted from across the lobby. Mr. Reed, sir, I came as soon as I heard... Elena turned to see a man in an expensive suit hurrying toward them. Mid-50s, graying hair, expensive watch. The kind of person who looked important because they were. Richard, Mason said flatly, how nice of you to join us. Richard, presumably someone senior in hotel management, took in the scene. His eyes moved from Mason to Elena, to the security guards, to Jennifer, to the phone still recording. His face went through several shades of pale. Mr. Reed, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding. Mason's voice remained deadly calm. There's been a complete failure. A failure of training, of judgment, of basic human respect. Your staff decided my wife didn't look wealthy enough to belong here, so they threw her out. That's not, Richard began. There are at least a dozen phones recording this conversation right now, Mason interrupted. So I choose your next words very carefully. Are you about to tell me that my wife is lying? Richard's jaw snapped shut. I thought not. Mason's hand moved to Elena's shoulder, steadying her. Elena, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Everything. And I need you to tell me in front of everyone here so we're all clear about what kind of establishment this has become. Elena's throat felt tight. She glanced around at the watching faces, at the guests with their phones, at the employees who'd treated her like trash, at Jennifer, who'd started this whole nightmare. Mason's hand squeezed her shoulder gently. You don't have to be strong right now, he said quietly, just for her. You just have to tell the truth. She took a shaky breath, then another. I walked in, she started, and her voice cracked. She cleared her throat and tried again. I walked in and went to the reception desk. I asked for a key card to the presidential suite. I told her I was your wife. And what did Jennifer say? Mason asked. Elena's eyes fixed on the floor. She said people claim to be connected to you all the time. She said your wife is a CEO and wouldn't show up looking like I do. She said I look like someone who doesn't belong here. Did you try to explain? I told her I'd been traveling. I told her to call you. I offered to prove who I was. She refused. She said she wouldn't disturb you based on claims from someone who walked in off the street. Mason's hand tightened on her shoulder, not painfully, protectively. Then what? Then she called security. Derek and Mike came. I asked them to call you. They refused. Derek grabbed my wrist when I tried to use my phone. Then they both grabbed my arms and started dragging me out. I told them my name. I told them who I was. Her voice broke completely. I told them, and they didn't care. The silence in the lobby was absolute. Elena felt the tears coming again and hated herself for it. She was Elena Brooks. She'd faced down hostile board members and aggressive competitors and politicians trying to shut down her factories. She didn't cry in public. But right now, wrapped in an old cardigan, with bruises forming on her wrists where security had grabbed her, in front of dozens of strangers who'd watched her humiliation, she couldn't stop. Mason pulled her against his chest again. His hand cupped the back of her head. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder. The kind of cold that came from fury so deep it burned. Richard, I want the security footage from the past 30 minutes. I want it pulled and saved to a secure drive. I want every angle. Sir, I'm not sure that wasn't a request. Mason's eyes lifted to Richard. That was an instruction. Get me the footage. Now. Richard practically ran toward the back offices. Mason's gaze swept the lobby. Everyone who is not a guest, go about your business. This doesn't concern you. His eyes fixed on the guests with their phones out. Those of you recording, I won't stop you. But understand that you're witnessing the consequences of judging people based on appearance. I hope the views are worth participating in someone's humiliation. A few phones lowered. Not all, but a few. Elena felt Mason's hand trembling again against her head, felt the deep breath he took and released slowly. Derek? Mike? You're done, he said quietly. Security badges on the desk. You're fired, effective immediately. Mr. Reed, please, Derek started. You put your hands on my wife. You dragged her across this lobby while she begged you to stop. You treated her like a criminal for the crime of not looking the way you expected. Mason's voice remained level, perfectly controlled. You're not just done here. I'm making sure every hotel in this city knows exactly why you were terminated. Now get out. Derek's face flushed red. For a moment, Elena thought he might argue. Then something in Mason's expression must have convinced him that would be a very bad idea. He unclipped his security badge and practically threw it onto the reception desk before stalking toward the exit. Mike followed wordlessly, his face pale. Mason's eyes moved to Jennifer. She was already crying, mascara running, hands shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. Mason's words were surgical. You saw someone who didn't meet your standards of what wealth looks like, and you decided they weren't worth your respect. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Please, Mr. Reed, I have a daughter. I need this job. My wife needed basic human decency. She didn't get it. Mason's jaw clenched. Pack your things. You're done. Jennifer's face crumpled. She made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Elena felt a twist in her chest. Despite everything, despite the humiliation, the cruel words, the mockery, watching someone lose their livelihood felt wrong. She pulled back from Mason slightly. Mason? Don't, he said softly, reading her expression. Don't ask me to excuse this. I'm not, but she mocked you. She treated you like garbage. She called security to remove you like you were a threat. His eyes held hers. If she did this to you, how many other people has she treated the same way? People who don't have the power to defend themselves? People who really were just dressed casually, who really were just average people trying to check in. Elena hadn't thought of that. Mason's hand cupped her face gently. This isn't about revenge, Elena. This is about making sure it never happens to anyone else. He was right. She knew he was right, but it still felt heavy. Richard returned with a laptop, his hands shaking slightly as he set it up on the reception desk. The screen flickered to life, showing 4 different camera angles of the lobby. The last 30 minutes, sir, Richard said. All angles. Mason kept one arm around Elena as he leaned toward the screen. His finger moved the timeline cursor backward. Elena watched herself walk into the lobby on screen. Watched herself approach Jennifer. Even from the camera angle, she could see the judgment in Jennifer's expression. Mason's jaw clenched tighter with each passing second. They watched Jennifer pick up her phone to call security, watched Derek and Mike approach, watched the conversation escalate. Then the part where Derek grabbed Elena's wrist. Mason's hand tightened on Elena's shoulder. She felt him go rigid beside her. On screen, the two guards grabbed both of Elena's arms, started walking her backward. Her mouth moved. They couldn't hear audio, but Elena remembered exactly what she'd been saying. "I'm Elena Brooks. I'm Mason Reed's wife. You can't just..." And Derek's visible response, "Sure you are, lady." Mason's breathing had gone shallow. They watched Elena stumble, watched her face contort in pain as her arm twisted, watched guests stand by and film, watched a bellboy, young kid, couldn't be more than 20, actually laugh as Elena's purse fell from her shoulder and spilled its contents across the marble. That bellboy was standing near the concierge desk right now, his face progressively draining of color as he realized he was on camera. Mason stopped the video. His hand remained on the laptop trackpad, but he didn't move. The lobby was silent. "There are several things wrong with what we just watched," Mason said finally. His voice was soft, almost conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Jennifer, you made a judgment call based purely on appearance. That's strike one. You refused to verify the information you were given. Strike two, you called security instead of simply making a phone call that would have resolved everything. Strike three." He looked up from the screen. "Derek and Mike, you escalated to physical force without attempting any de-escalation. You grabbed a woman who posed no threat. You caused her physical pain, yes. I saw her face when you twisted her arm. You mocked her while doing it. 3 more strikes." His eyes found the bellboy. "And you, laughing, actively enjoying someone's humiliation." Mason's voice went quieter. "What's your name?" Tyler, sir." "Tyler, you're 19? 20? 21, sir." "Old enough to know better." Mason straightened. "Badge, now." Tyler's face crumpled. "Please, Did you think it was funny? When you laughed?" "No, You did in the moment. I saw you." Mason's expression remained neutral. "I wonder if you'll find it funny when you're explaining to your next potential employer why you were fired." Tyler unclipped his badge with shaking hands and set it on the desk. Elena watched him walk toward the exit, shoulders hunched, and felt that same twist in her chest. But she also remembered the sound of his laughter, remembered how that felt, hearing someone find amusement in her pain. Maybe Mason was right. Maybe this was about more than just her. "Richard," Mason said, "I want a full audit of every employee in this hotel. Everyone. I want to know who else witnessed this and did nothing. I want to know what training protocols we have in place that allowed this to happen. And I want recommendations for a complete overhaul of how we handle guest services." "Yes, sir." "Absolutely, sir. I also want every guest who was in this lobby during the incident contacted. Personal apologies from senior management. Full refunds for their stays. This hotel's reputation just took a hit because my staff decided to judge my wife based on her genes." "Of course, sir." Mason's hand moved to the small of Elena's back. "Come on, let's get you upstairs." Elena let him guide her toward the executive elevator. Her legs felt shaky. The adrenaline that had been keeping her upright was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. As the elevator doors started to close, she caught a last glimpse of the lobby. Guests whispering, employees looking shell-shocked. Jennifer sitting on one of the leather couches, face in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. The doors sealed shut. The elevator began its smooth ascent. And Elena finally let herself completely fall apart. The elevator ascended in silence, broken only by the soft mechanical hum and Elena's ragged breathing. She'd started crying the moment the doors closed and now couldn't seem to stop. Big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. The kind of crying that came from somewhere deeper than embarrassment or anger. Mason didn't say anything, just held her, one hand steady against her back, the other cradling her head against his chest. His heart beat fast beneath her ear, faster than normal. He was still furious, she realized, still holding it together by sheer force of will because she needed him to. The elevator chimed. 68th floor. The doors opened directly into the presidential suite's private foyer. Marble floors gave way to hardwood. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Chicago, stretching out in every direction, gray sky pressing down on gray buildings. Elena barely registered any of it. Mason guided her through the foyer into the main living area. Huge space, furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. Art on the walls. None of it mattered. Sit, Mason said gently, steering her toward a leather couch. Elena sat, or collapsed. Hard to tell the difference. Mason disappeared into another room and returned 30 seconds later with a glass of water and a box of tissues. He set both on the coffee table and sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched. Elena grabbed a handful of tissues and pressed them against her face. Her hands were shaking. Everything was shaking. "I'm sorry," she said through the tissues. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be." "Don't." Mason's hand found hers. "Don't apologize for having a completely normal reaction to being assaulted. They didn't assault me, they grabbed you. They physically removed you from a building while you told them to stop. That's assault, Elena." His voice was tight. "The fact that they were security guards doesn't make it legal." Elena lowered the tissues. Her face felt hot and swollen. "I told them who I was. I told them, and they laughed." Mason's jaw clenched. The muscle jumped again. "I know. That woman, Jennifer, she looked at me like I was garbage, like I was trying to scam the hotel, like I was—" Elena's voice broke again. "I run a company with 4,000 employees. I've closed deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And she treated me like I was nothing because I wore old jeans." "I know," Mason said again. His hand squeezed hers. "I know. And I'm so goddamn sorry. It's not your fault. It's my hotel, my staff, my responsibility." His free hand ran through his hair, making it stand up at odd angles. "I hired those people. I trusted them to represent what this company is supposed to be about." Elena wiped at her eyes. The tissues were already soaked. She reached for more. "What is it supposed to be about?" "Not that." Mason's voice went hard. "Never that." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the clouds had started spitting rain against the windows. The sound was almost soothing, almost enough to drown out the memory of laughter in the lobby. Almost. "Where's Sophia?" Elena asked, suddenly realizing the suite was quiet. Too quiet for a 7-year-old to be present. "Playdate with a friend from school. Won't be back until 6. Mason glanced at his watch. 3 hours from now. "Good. I don't want her to see me like this." "Elena, she's seen you cry before." "Not like this." Elena looked down at her hands, at her wrists where faint red marks were already darkening to bruises. "Not because someone treated me like I was worthless." Mason's eyes followed hers to the bruises. Something dangerous flashed across his face. "I should have fired them slower," he said quietly. "Should have made them understand exactly what they did wrong before I threw them out." "You fired 3 people in under 10 minutes. I think they understood." "Did they?" Mason's hand moved to her wrist, his thumb hovering just above the bruise without touching it. "Or did they just understand they got caught?" Elena didn't have an answer for that. Her phone buzzed from somewhere in her cardigan pocket. Then again. Then 3 more times in rapid succession. She pulled it out. The screen was cracked. Must have happened when her purse hit the floor, but still functional. Notifications crowded the lock screen. Text from her assistant, Sarah. "Elena, are you okay? I just saw a video." Text from her brother, Marcus. "What the hell happened? Call me." Text from her CFO. Janet. "Just saw Twitter. Do you need anything?" And emails. So many emails flooding in that her phone couldn't keep up with the notifications. "What?" Elena unlocked her phone and opened Twitter. Her face stared back at her from a dozen different videos, all posted within the last 20 minutes. Some from guests in the lobby, some from farther away. Different angles of the same nightmare. The top trending topic in Chicago, #Grand Meridian Scandal. "Oh no," Elena whispered. Mason leaned closer to see the screen. His expression went from concerned to thunderous in about 2 seconds. The most popular video had been posted by someone named at Chicago travel blogger with the caption, "Just witnessed. Security at the Grand Meridian Hotel literally dragging a woman out for not looking rich enough. She claimed to be the owner's wife. Turns out she was. This is absolutely disgusting. thread below. The video showed everything. Elena approaching the desk, the conversation with Jennifer, no audio, but the body language said enough. Security arriving. The moment Derek grabbed her wrist. 34,000 retweets, 62,000 likes. The numbers kept climbing as Elena watched. The thread continued with more videos. Different angles. Close-ups. One particularly clear shot showed Elena's face as the guards dragged her backward, the exact moment she'd realized no one was going to help her. Elena felt sick. "Don't read the comments," Mason said. She read the comments. Most were supportive. "This is horrifying. Sue them. How do these people sleep at night? Class discrimination is real, and this proves it." But others, "If she's really a CEO, why would she dress like that? Something seems off about this story. Rich people love playing victim, probably staged for attention." "Elena, stop." Mason gently took the phone from her hands. "You're torturing yourself. They think I'm lying. They think this was staged. A handful of idiots on Twitter think that. The vast majority see exactly what happened." He set her phone on the coffee table, screen down. "And even if they didn't, even if the whole internet thought you were lying, you know the truth. I know the truth. That's what matters." Elena wanted to believe him, but the sick feeling in her stomach wouldn't go away. "This is going to be everywhere by tonight," she said. "Every news outlet, every gossip site. They're going to dig into our lives, into Sophia's life. They're going to Hey!" Mason's hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. "Breathe. Just breathe for a second." Elena tried. Her breath hitched. "We'll handle it," Mason said. "Whatever comes, we handle it together. That's what we do. I came here to surprise you, to spend time with you, and instead Her voice broke again. "I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything. You walked into my hotel like you had every right to, because you do, and my staff failed you. That's on them. That's on me. Not you. Never you." The rain picked up outside, pelting the windows harder. The gray afternoon was getting darker, like the sky was matching the mood. Elena's phone buzzed again. Mason flipped it over to see the screen. "Your publicist," he said. "Diane." "I don't want to talk to her right now. She's probably trying to help." "I know, Elena slumped back against the couch. "I can't. Not yet." Mason silenced the phone and set it aside again. He stood, walked to the windows, stood there with his hands in his pockets staring out at Chicago. "When Margaret died," he said quietly, "people treated me differently. Like grief was contagious. Like if they got too close to the sad widower, some of it might rub off on them." Elena knew about Margaret, Mason's first wife, Sophia's mother. Lost to an aneurysm 4 years ago, sudden and brutal and completely without warning. "They'd cross the street to avoid talking to me," Mason continued. "Or they'd talk to me, but with this voice. You know? That careful, gentle voice people use around broken things. Like I might shatter if they spoke normally." He turned from the window. "The worst were the ones who judged me for how I grieved, for working too much or not working enough, for smiling at Sophia's kindergarten graduation or crying at the grocery store. There was no right way to be sad in public." "Mason." "My point is, people are going to judge you no matter what you do. You could have walked into that lobby in a ball gown and someone would have found something to criticize. You could have handled this whole thing differently, been angrier, been calmer, been anything, and someone would still say you were wrong." He moved back to the couch, sat down beside her. "So screw what anyone thinks. You're not performing your trauma for Twitter's approval." Elena felt tears threatening again, but pushed them back. She'd cried enough for one day. "How are you so calm about this?" she asked. Mason's laugh was bitter. "I'm not calm. I'm about 10 seconds away from going back downstairs and firing everyone who stood in that lobby and did nothing. I want to find Derek and Mike and—" He stopped himself, took a breath. "But you need me functional right now, so I'm compartmentalizing. That's not healthy. Neither is what just happened to you." "Fair point." Elena's stomach growled suddenly, loud in the quiet suite. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. The plane? Before the plane? Time zones had scrambled her internal clock beyond recognition. "When did you last eat?" Mason asked. "I don't know. London? Maybe?" "Elena, that was yesterday." "Was it? I honestly can't tell anymore." She rubbed her eyes. Everything's blurry. Mason stood. Stay here. I'm ordering food. I'm not hungry. Your stomach just argued otherwise. He pulled out his phone. What do you want? I don't care. Elena. Fine. Something with carbs. I don't know. Whatever. Mason made a call to what sounded like room service. Elena heard him order half the menu in the kind of voice that suggested he knew the person on the other end and wasn't taking no for an answer. When he hung up, he sat back down and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Elena let herself lean against him, let herself stop holding it together for a few minutes. I keep thinking about Jennifer, she said after a while. She was crying when we left. She has a daughter. I know. I feel bad about that. You shouldn't. But I do. Elena shifted to look at him. What if she can't find another job? What if... Then she'll learn a very expensive lesson about treating people with basic respect. Mason's voice was firm. Elena, I know you have a good heart. I know you don't like seeing people suffer, even people who hurt you. But what she did was unacceptable. And if I let it slide, if I say, well, she has a daughter, so it's fine, then I'm telling every other employee in every hotel I own that discrimination is acceptable as long as you have a sympathetic excuse. I know, you're right. I just, feel bad anyway. I know. His arm tightened around her. That's what makes you a better person than she is. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mason stood to answer it. A room service attendant, older woman, kind eyes, wheeled in a cart laden with covered dishes. She started setting them on the dining table, moving efficiently. Thank you, Patricia, Mason said. Of course, Mr. Reed. Patricia glanced at Elena, and something in her expression shifted. Recognition, maybe, or pity. Is there anything else you need, sir? No, this is perfect. Patricia nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. Sir, if I may, I heard what happened downstairs. I'm very sorry Mrs. Reed was treated that way. It doesn't represent most of us. Elena felt a lump in her throat. I appreciate that, Patricia, Mason said. Thank you. When she left, Mason gestured to the table. Come on, eat something before you pass out. Elena wasn't sure her stomach could handle food, but she moved to the table anyway. Mason had ordered pasta, soup, bread, salad, and what looked like 3 different desserts. This is enough food for 6 people, Elena said. I wasn't sure what you'd want. She picked up a fork and poked at the pasta, took a small bite, then another. Her body apparently decided that yes, actually, she was starving, and suddenly she was eating like she'd been lost at sea for a week. Mason ate more slowly, watching her with something like amusement in his eyes. What? Elena said around a mouthful of linguine. Nothing. Just glad you're eating. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The food helped. The sick feeling in Elena's stomach started to recede, replaced by the more manageable sensation of exhaustion. Her phone buzzed again, and again, and again. It's not going to stop, is it? She said. Probably not for a while. Mason set down his fork. Do you want me to handle it? I can call Diane, tell her to prepare a statement, deal with the media circus. What would the statement say? Whatever you want it to say. We can condemn the hotel's actions. We can talk about class discrimination. We can say nothing at all and let the videos speak for themselves. He paused. Or you can wait until you've had time to process this and decide what you want to say on your own terms. Elena considered. Part of her wanted to put out a statement immediately, control the narrative, shape the conversation, but a larger part just wanted to hide in this suite and pretend the outside world didn't exist. I don't know what I want, she admitted. I don't know if I want to make this into a big thing or just let it die down naturally. It's already a big thing, Mason said gently. The question is whether you want to participate in making it mean something or let other people define what it means. He had a point. Can I think about it? Elena asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. Her phone buzzed again. Elena glanced at the screen. Another text. This one from her board chairman. Elena, just saw the news. The board stands behind you. Let us know if you need anything. Then one from her oldest friend Rachel. I'm getting on a plane. I'll be there in 4 hours. Don't argue with me. Then her mother. Sweetheart, call me when you can. Love you. The messages kept coming. Colleagues, friends, business contacts. Even a few competitors sent messages of support. It was overwhelming in a completely different way than the lobby had been. Everyone knows, Elena said quietly. Everyone in my industry, everyone I work with, everyone who's ever met me professionally, they all know I got dragged out of a hotel for wearing old jeans. They all know you were discriminated against, Mason corrected. There's a difference. Is there? All they'll remember is that I looked poor enough to be mistaken for a scammer. Mason set down his fork with more force than necessary. Elena, look at me. She did. You could have walked in there in a trash bag and you still deserve basic human respect. The problem isn't how you looked. The problem is how they treated you. Don't let their failure become your shame. Elena wanted to believe him. She did believe him, intellectually. But emotionally, some part of her still felt the hot burn of humiliation. Still heard Jennifer's voice. You look like someone who doesn't belong here. I know you're right, she said. I just need time to feel right. That's fair? They finished eating in silence. Elena managed to put away an impressive amount of pasta and half a piece of chocolate cake before her exhausted body finally hit a wall. She pushed back from the table. I need to shower. I feel like I've been wearing these clothes for a year. Go ahead. I'll clean up here. Elena headed toward the master bedroom, then paused at the doorway. Mason? Yeah? Thank you for... She gestured vaguely at everything. All of this. For believing me without question. For firing those people. For being exactly what I needed. Mason crossed the distance between them and kissed her forehead. Always. The master bathroom was ridiculous. All marble and glass and a shower with about 17 different settings. Elena stripped off the cardigan, Mason's cardigan, and her jeans and the rest of her travel-wrinkled clothes and left them in a pile on the floor. The bruises on her wrists looked worse now. Dark purple fingerprints. Evidence. She stepped into the shower and turned the water as hot as she could stand. Let it pound against her shoulders and back. Watched the steam fill the glass enclosure until she couldn't see anything beyond it. And finally, alone, she let herself completely break down. Not the crying from earlier. This was deeper. Angrier. She pressed her hands against the marble wall and sobbed until her throat was raw. Let out every bit of rage and humiliation and hurt that she'd been holding back while trying to stay functional. Someone had put their hands on her, had physically removed her from a building while she begged them to stop, had laughed at her pain, and dozens of people had watched and done nothing. The water mixed with her tears and washed them away. Elena didn't know how long she stood there, long enough for her fingers to prune, long enough for the hot water to start running lukewarm. When she finally turned off the shower and stepped out, she felt hollowed out. Empty. But maybe that was better than the alternative. She dried off and wrapped herself in one of the hotel's plush robes. Found her suitcase. Mason must have had it brought up from wherever hotel staff had stored it, and pulled out clean clothes, real clothes, not travel clothes. A soft sweater and leggings that actually fit. When she emerged from the bedroom, Mason was on his phone in the living area. He glanced up, took in her appearance, and held up one finger. I understand that, Richard, but I need you to understand something too. His voice was cold, professional. The voice he used for business when someone was testing his patience. This isn't a request for recommendations. This is a directive. I want that policy rewritten by Monday. I want every single employee and every single property trained on the new standards. And I want quarterly audits to ensure compliance. Is that clear? A pause. Good. Send me the draft when it's ready. He hung up without saying goodbye. What was that about? Elena asked, settling onto the couch. New anti-discrimination policy. Zero tolerance. First offense results in immediate termination, no exceptions. Mason set his phone aside. I'm also implementing mandatory training on implicit bias and class discrimination. Every employee, every level, every hotel. That's going to be expensive. I don't care. Mason, I mean it. I don't care if it costs millions. I don't care if it's logistically complicated. I don't care if some people think I'm overreacting. His jaw set. What happened to you today happens in hotels across the country every single day. People getting judged, getting dismissed, getting treated like they don't matter because they don't look the part. And maybe I can't fix the whole industry, but I can damn sure fix my corner of it. Elena felt something warm spread through her chest. You're a good person, you know that? I'm a furious person right now. Good is debatable. No, you're good. Even when you're furious. She pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. Most people would have handled this quietly, fired the staff involved, made some apologies, moved on. You're actually trying to change something. Because if I don't, then what was the point of any of this? Mason moved to sit beside her. Your suffering has to mean something, Elena. It has to result in something better. Otherwise, it's just cruelty for cruelty's sake. They sat together as the afternoon deepened toward evening. The rain had stopped, but the sky stayed gray. Chicago looked washed out and tired through the windows. Elena's phone buzzed again. She'd stopped checking every notification, but this one was a call, not a text. The screen showed Diane, her publicist. I should probably take this, Elena said. Want me to stay or give you privacy? Stay, she answered. Hi, Diane. Elena, thank Christ. Diane's voice came through sharp and rapid fire. I've been trying to reach you for an hour. Have you seen Twitter? Have you seen the news? CNN picked it up. So did the Times. This is everywhere. I know. I've seen some of it. Okay, good. We need to get ahead of this. I've drafted 3 different statements depending on what angle you want to take. I can email them to you right now. You pick one. We release it within the hour. Diane, slow down. A pause. Elena, I know this is traumatic. I know you're processing, but we're in a critical window right now. The narrative is forming with or without your input. We need to shape it before it shapes you. Elena closed her eyes. What are people saying? Most people are on your side. The videos are pretty damning, but there's a contingent, small but loud, saying this seems staged, that you're using this for publicity, that a real CEO wouldn't dress like that. Diane's voice gentled slightly. It's bullshit, obviously, but we need to address it. How do we address people who've already decided I'm lying? By telling your truth loudly enough that their lies don't matter. Diane took a breath. Elena, you have a platform. You have credibility. You can turn this into something meaningful, or you can let it just be a viral moment that people forget in a week. Your choice. But you need to choose soon. Elena looked at Mason. He was watching her with those steady eyes. Not pushing, not pulling, just present. Can you send me the draft statements? Elena asked Diane. I'll read them and let you know. When? Tonight. I promise. Just give me a few more hours to think. Another pause. Okay. But Elena? Don't think too long. The news cycle moves fast. I know. Thanks, Diane. She hung up. 3 different statements, Mason said. What are the angles? I don't know. She's going to email them. Elena set her phone down. Part of me wants to just release something simple. This happened. It was wrong. I hope we can all learn from it. Done. And the other part? Wants to burn the whole thing down. Name names. Describe exactly what happened and how it felt. Make sure Jennifer and Derek and everyone involved becomes permanently attached to this story. She rubbed her face. Which is petty and vindictive and not who I want to be. It's also human, Mason said. You're allowed to be angry. Being angry and acting on anger are different things. True. Elena's phone chimed with an email notification. The drafts from Diane, presumably. She opened her email and skimmed the 3 options. Option 1 was brief and professional. I'm grateful for the outpouring of support following today's incident at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Discrimination based on appearance is unacceptable in any context. I hope this serves as a learning opportunity for the hospitality industry. My family and I appreciate your kindness during this time. Option 2 was more detailed. Today, I experienced firsthand the kind of class discrimination that happens every day to countless people who don't have the platform to speak out. I was judged, dismissed, and physically removed from a building simply because I didn't look wealthy enough. This isn't about me. It's about a culture that values appearance over humanity. We can do better. We must do better. Option 3 was longer, more personal. It described the incident in detail, named the emotional impact, called out specific failures in the hotel's policies, and ended with a call to action for industry-wide change. Which one feels right? Mason asked. I don't know. Option 1 feels too dismissive. Option 3 feels too much like I'm making myself the story. Option 2 is somewhere in the middle, but also feels kind of generic. Elena set her phone down. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Or maybe you're not ready to make this decision yet, and that's okay. Diane said the narrative is forming without me. Let it. You can always join the conversation later. There's no rule that says you have to perform your trauma on Twitter's timeline. He took her hand. What do you actually want, Elena? Not what you think you should want. Not what makes the best statement. What do you right now actually need? Elena thought about it. I want to stop thinking about it for a few hours, she admitted. I want to be with you and Sophia and pretend today didn't happen. And then tomorrow or the day after, when I've had time to process, I'll figure out what I want to say. Then that's what we'll do. But Diane can wait. The news can wait. Twitter can definitely wait. Mason stood and pulled her to her feet. Come on. Sophia will be back soon and she's going to lose her mind when she sees you're here. Elena managed a small smile. I missed her. She missed you too. Drew you about 15 pictures. They're all of octopuses because, again, the documentary phase shows no signs of ending. That surprised a laugh out of Elena. An actual, genuine laugh. The first one since she'd walked into the lobby hours ago. It felt good. It felt like maybe, eventually, she'd be okay. Sophia came through the door like a small hurricane at exactly 6:03, her backpack trailing behind her, one shoe already off, talking before she'd even cleared the entryway. And then Marcus said that octopuses can't actually taste with their arms. But I told him he was wrong because I watched the whole documentary and they have chemoreceptors in their suckers, which means they can taste. And he said I was making it up, but I wasn't. And Miss Anderson said we were both right, kind of, because Elena, the 7-year-old spotted her stepmother and dropped everything. Backpack, remaining shoe, the drawing she'd been clutching. All of it hit the floor as Sophia launched herself across the living room. Elena barely had time to brace herself before 45 pounds of excited child collided with her midsection. You're here. You're actually here. Dad said you might come home early, but I thought he meant next week, and Sophia pulled back, her hands on Elena's face, studying her with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. Why do you look sad? Are you sick? Did something happen on the plane? Elena's throat tightened. Mason had moved to stand behind Sophia, and the look he gave Elena said, Your call. We can tell her or not. I'm fine, sweetie, Elena managed. Just tired from traveling. You know how airplanes are. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She had Mason's eyes, same color, same intensity, and right now they were boring into Elena like a lie detector. You were crying, Sophia said. Not a question, a statement. How do you... Your eyes are puffy, and your nose is red, and you do this thing with your mouth when you're trying not to cry where it gets all tight in the corners. Sophia demonstrated, scrunching her face up. Like that. Mason coughed to cover what might have been a laugh. Elena sighed. There was no point lying to Sophia. The kid was too observant by half. Okay, yes, I was crying earlier, but I'm okay now, I promise. Why were you crying? Something not very nice happened at the hotel, but your dad fixed it. What happened? Elena glanced at Mason again. He gave a small shrug that said, Still your call. How did you explain to a 7-year-old that adults could be cruel for no reason? That looking a certain way could make people treat you like you didn't matter? Some people at the hotel made a mistake, Elena said carefully. They didn't recognize me, and they were kind of rude about it. It hurt my feelings. Sophia processed this with the seriousness she applied to everything. Did they say mean things? Sort of. Did you tell Dad? I did. Did he yell at them? He definitely let them know they were wrong. Sophia nodded, satisfied with this answer. Good. Dad's really good at the disappointed voice. It's worse than yelling. It really is, Elena agreed. Are you sure you're okay, though? Sophia's hands were still on Elena's face, her expression worried in that particular way children get when they sense adults aren't telling them everything. Elena pulled Sophia into a proper hug. I'm sure, especially now that I get to see you. I missed you so much. I missed you too. Sophia's voice was muffled against Elena's shoulder. It's boring when you're gone. Dad tries, but he doesn't understand octopus facts like you do. Hey, Mason protested mildly. It's true, Dad. You kept saying that's interesting, but I could tell you weren't really listening during the documentary. I was listening. I learned about the chromatophores, the color-changing cells. Chromatophores are basic knowledge. I'm talking about the advanced stuff, like how they can regrow limbs and solve puzzles, and each arm has a mind of its own kind of. Sophia pulled back from Elena. Did you know that 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are in its arms, not its brain? I did not know that, Elena said honestly. It's so cool. So each arm can do different things at the same time without the brain having to control everything. It's like having 8 mini brains. Sophia's whole face lit up when she talked about things she loved. I want to study them when I grow up. Maybe be a marine biologist. Last week you wanted to be a veterinarian, Mason pointed out. I can be both. I'll be a marine veterinarian who specializes in octopuses. Octopi, Mason corrected. Actually, either is acceptable, but octopuses is more scientifically accurate because it's a Latinized Greek word, not a true Latin word, so the Latin plural doesn't technically apply. Sophia said this with the confidence of someone who'd clearly researched the debate extensively. Mason held up his hands in surrender. You win. Sophia grinned and turned back to Elena. I drew you pictures. Want to see? Absolutely. The next 20 minutes involved Sophia presenting a portfolio of octopus drawings with detailed explanations of each one. This one was a blue-ringed octopus, which was beautiful but deadly. That one was a mimic octopus, which could impersonate other sea creatures. This one was a Dumbo octopus, which lived in the deep sea and was adorable. Elena let herself get absorbed in Sophia's enthusiasm. Let the chatter about marine biology wash away the memory of the lobby. Let herself be present in this moment instead of stuck in earlier ones. But her phone kept buzzing. Texts, emails, calls. The outside world refusing to be ignored. Sophia noticed. Your phone's being really annoying. I know. Sorry. Elena silenced it completely and set it face down on the coffee table. There. Better. Are you in trouble at work? No, sweetie. Just a lot of people trying to get in touch with me. About the rude people at the hotel? Elena exchanged a look with Mason. Sort of, yeah. Are they going to say they're sorry? Some of them already did. That was true enough. Patricia from room service. A few other employees Elena didn't know had apparently sent messages through Richard. But it's complicated. Why? Because sometimes when adults make mistakes, it becomes a big deal that lots of people want to talk about. Sophia considered this. Like when Marcus told everyone I cheated on the science test, but I didn't, and then the whole class was talking about it and Miss Anderson had to have a meeting? Kind of like that, yes. That was stupid. I didn't cheat. I just study a lot. Sophia crossed her arms. People believe what they want to believe sometimes, even when you tell them the truth. Out of the mouths of babes, Elena thought. That's exactly right, she said. Well, I believe you, Sophia declared, and if anyone says you were wrong, I'll tell them they're stupid. Please don't call people stupid, Mason said. Fine. I'll tell them they're factually incorrect and should reconsider their position based on available evidence. Mason rubbed his temples. I've created a monster. You've created a very smart kid, Elena corrected. She pulled Sophia close again. Thank you for believing me. Of course I believe you. You're Elena. You don't lie about stuff. Sophia settled against her side. Hey, can we watch the documentary again? The one about cephalopods? There's a part about cuttlefish you haven't seen yet. Elena's exhausted brain rebelled at the thought of a 3-hour nature documentary, but one look at Sophia's hopeful face and she caved immediately. Sure, why not? Mason caught her eye and mouthed, You don't have to. Elena mouthed back, I want to. And surprisingly, she did. She wanted to sit on this couch with her stepdaughter and husband and learn about cuttlefish. She wanted normal. She wanted to not think about security guards and viral videos and her phone buzzing with messages she wasn't ready to answer. They settled in, Sophia between them, the documentary playing on the enormous television. The narrator had a soothing British accent and the underwater footage was genuinely beautiful. Elena felt herself relaxing for the first time since she'd walked into the lobby. Halfway through a segment about cuttlefish camouflage, Sophia fell asleep. Her head lolled against Elena's shoulder, mouth slightly open, completely out. She does this every time, Mason whispered. Gets about 40 minutes in and crashes. Should we move her to bed? In a minute, let her sleep. They sat in comfortable silence, the documentary continuing without an audience. Elena watched cuttlefish change colors and textures, blending seamlessly into coral reefs and sandy bottoms. Adaptive camouflage, hiding in plain sight. I need to decide what to do about the statement, Elena said quietly. Mason's arm tightened around her shoulders. You don't have to decide tonight. Diane's right, though. The longer I wait, the more other people control the narrative. Let them. You're not obligated to perform your trauma for public consumption. But if I don't say something, doesn't that make it seem like I'm hiding? Like I did something wrong? No. It makes it seem like you're taking time to process a traumatic experience before commenting publicly on it, which is a completely reasonable thing to do. Mason paused. Unless you want to say something. If making a statement would help you feel better, then do it. Just make sure you're doing it for you, not because Twitter thinks you should. Elena looked down at Sophia, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm happening online. Unaware that videos of her stepmother being dragged across a lobby had been viewed millions of times by now. Unaware that strangers were arguing about whether Elena deserved sympathy or suspicion. I don't want this to touch her, Elena whispered. I don't want her seeing those videos someday. I don't want kids at school knowing about it and saying things. Kids at school barely know what Twitter is. And by the time Sophia's old enough to search for this stuff, it'll be ancient history. Mason's hand rubbed small circles on her shoulder. The internet has the attention span of a goldfish. This feels huge right now, but in a week there'll be a new scandal and everyone will move on. You really believe that? I've seen it happen a dozen times. Remember when that tech CEO got caught lying about his credentials? Huge scandal, covered everywhere. 2 weeks later, no one cared. He shifted slightly, careful not to disturb Sophia. This will pass. The question is how much of yourself you want to give to it while it's passing. Elena's phone lit up on the coffee table, even though it was silenced. Another notification, another message, another person wanting a piece of her story. I think I want to say something, she said slowly. Not tonight, but soon. I want to make sure what happened to me means something, that it changes something. Okay, then we'll work on it together. Figure out what you want to say and how you want to say it. You don't have to, I want to. This happened at my hotel. I have skin in this game too. They sat together watching cuttlefish hunt, Sophia's soft breathing the only sound besides the narrator's voice. Elena felt her own eyelids growing heavy. The exhaustion of 19 hours of travel, plus the emotional roller coaster of the afternoon, was catching up. We should get her to bed, Mason said. He scooped Sophia up carefully. She stirred slightly, mumbling something about tentacles, then settled against his chest. Elena followed them to Sophia's bedroom, decorated in shades of blue and green, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, posters of marine life covering every available wall space. Mason laid Sophia on her bed and pulled the covers up. Elena bent down and kissed her forehead. Love you, she whispered. Sophia's eyes flickered open briefly. Love you too. Glad you're home. Then she was out again, deeply asleep. Back in the living room, Elena finally picked up her phone. 47 unread messages, 23 missed calls, dozens of emails. She opened the email from Diane and read through the 3 draft statements again. Option 2 still felt the most right. Personal, but not too personal. Calling out the problem without making it entirely about her own experience. I think I want to go with this one, she said, showing Mason the screen, with some modifications. Like what? I want to add something about the staff who were kind. Patricia from room service. People need to know that most employees did nothing wrong. Elena scrolled through the text. And I want to be clear about the fact that this happens to people who can't defend themselves. That I'm lucky I have a platform, but thousands of others don't. Those are good additions. Elena opened a new email to Diane and started typing. Use option 2 as the base. Add a paragraph acknowledging kind staff members, and another emphasizing this isn't just about me. Run the revised version by me before releasing, planning to post tomorrow afternoon. Thanks for your patience. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Done, she said. How do you feel? Tired, overwhelmed, kind of angry still, but better than I felt this afternoon. She set her phone down again. Is it always going to feel this weird, knowing that millions of people watch the worst moment of my day? Probably, but it'll get easier. Mason pulled her against his side. And for what it's worth, they didn't watch the worst moment. They watched you being mistreated, and then they watched you being defended. They watched someone powerful stand up for you. That's not nothing. Elena hadn't thought about it that way. I guess that's true. It is true. And tomorrow, when you release your statement, they'll watch you use that experience to try to change something. That's powerful, Elena. That matters. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Rachel, just landed, coming to the hotel. What room? Elena smiled. My friend Rachel just got here, flew in from Boston. Tonight? It's almost 9. That's Rachel. She texted earlier saying she was getting on a plane. I thought she was exaggerating. Elena typed back the suite number. She's probably going to want to plot revenge schemes and drink wine and tell me I should sue everyone. Should I make myself scarce? No, stay. She likes you. Plus, she's terrible at revenge schemes. Last time she tried to get back at an ex-boyfriend, she accidentally had flowers delivered to the wrong address and made some random person's day. Mason laughed. Okay, I'll stay. 20 minutes later, Rachel burst through the suite door carrying 2 bottles of wine, a bag of takeout from somewhere, and the kind of energy that suggested she'd been fueled entirely by righteous anger during the entire flight. Where is she? Rachel demanded. Then she spotted Elena on the couch. There you are. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? I watched the videos and I swear I'm going to find those security guards and... She stopped, took a breath. Okay, I'm calm. I'm totally calm. You're not calm, Elena said. I'm calm-ish. Rachel set everything down on the coffee table and pulled Elena into a fierce hug. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Thanks for coming. Of course I came. You're my person. Someone messes with you. They mess with me. Rachel pulled back and looked Elena over like she was checking for injuries. Did you eat? You need to eat. I brought Thai food. I ate earlier, but I could probably eat again. Good. We're eating and drinking, and you're going to tell me everything, and then we're going to figure out what to do about it. Rachel finally seemed to notice Mason standing nearby. Hey, Mason. Sorry for barging in. Hope you don't mind. Not at all. Elena needs her people right now. Damn right she does. Rachel started unpacking containers of pad thai and spring rolls and curry. Okay, talk. I've seen the videos, but I want to hear it from you. What happened? Elena went through this whole story again. It was easier the second time, with some emotional distance. Rachel listened, her expression cycling through outrage and sympathy and pure fury. That Jennifer woman, Rachel said when Elena finished. Please tell me she was fired. She was, Mason confirmed. Good. She deserved it. Rachel speared a spring roll with unnecessary force. And the security guards? Please say they were arrested. Fired, not arrested. Elena picked at her pad thai. Mason wanted to press charges, but I wasn't ready to deal with that on top of everything else. You could still press charges, Rachel pointed out. Assault is assault, even if they were wearing uniforms. I know. I'm thinking about it. They ate and talked and drank wine. Rachel told stories about terrible hotel experiences she'd had, clearly trying to make Elena feel less alone. Mason added a few of his own from before he owned hotels. The conversation was easy, comfortable, exactly what Elena needed. Around 11, Rachel's energy finally started to flag. I should get a room, she said, stifling a yawn. Let you two get some sleep. You can stay here, Mason offered. There's a second bedroom. You sure? Positive. It's late and you flew across the country today? Just stay. Rachel didn't argue. She disappeared into the guest room and emerged 5 minutes later in borrowed pajamas, her hair in a messy bun. This place is ridiculous, by the way, she said. The guest bathroom has heated floors. Heated floors. I didn't design it, Mason said. I know, but still. Heated floors. Wild. She hugged Elena goodnight and disappeared back into the guest room. Elena and Mason got ready for bed in comfortable silence. She brushed her teeth, washed her face, changed into actual pajamas instead of just the robe. When she finally climbed into bed, her body practically melted into the mattress. Every muscle ached, every bone felt heavy. Mason slid in beside her and pulled her close. Tomorrow's going to be better, he said quietly. You can't know that. I can hope it. His hand found hers under the covers. And either way, we'll face it together. Elena wanted to say something meaningful, something about how grateful she was for him, for Sophia, for Rachel showing up without being asked. But exhaustion was pulling her under and words felt too hard. "Love you," she managed. "Love you too." She was asleep within minutes. Her dreams were fragmented. The lobby, Jennifer's face, Derek's hand on her wrist, dozens of phones pointed at her, Sophia asking why she looked sad. The dreams cycled and repeated, never quite tipping into nightmare territory, but never comfortable either. She woke once around 3 in the morning, disoriented and breathing hard. Mason was there immediately, his hand on her back. "Just a dream," he murmured. "You're safe. Go back to sleep." She did. When she woke again, gray morning light filtered through the windows. Mason was already up, dressed in running clothes, tying his shoes. "Morning," he said quietly. "Didn't want to wake you." "What time is it?" 6:30. "I was going to hit the hotel gym, but I can stay if you need me." "No, go. I'm fine." Elena sat up, pushing hair out of her face. "Is Rachel up?" "I heard the shower running in the guest room, so probably." Elena's phone sat on the nightstand, still face down where she'd left it last night. She picked it up and braced herself. 82 new notifications. Most were supportive messages. A few were media requests for interviews. One was from Diane with the revised statement for Elena to approve. Elena opened it and read through the changes. Diane had incorporated her suggestions perfectly, adding warmth and specificity without making the statement too long. It felt right. "Okay," Elena said to the empty room. "Let's do this." She sent Diane the approval and permission to release it. Within minutes, Diane responded, "Posted to your Twitter and LinkedIn. Press release going out to major outlets now. You did the right thing." Elena set her phone down and got out of bed. Time to face the day. Rachel was in the kitchen when Elena emerged, making coffee like she owned the place. "Morning," Rachel said. "Sleep okay?" "Mostly. You?" Those heated floors helped. Rachel poured 2 mugs and handed one to Elena. "So what's the plan for today?" "I just approved a statement. It'll be public in the next hour or so. After that," Elena trailed off. "I have no idea." "Want to get out of the hotel? Go somewhere? Do something normal?" The thought of leaving the suite felt overwhelming, but staying here, refreshing Twitter all day, watching the reactions roll in, that felt worse. "Yeah," Elena said. "Let's get out of here." They waited until Mason got back from his run, until Sophia was up and dressed, until the morning routine had settled into something approaching normal. Then Elena checked her phone one more time. Her statement was live, already shared thousands of times. The responses were rolling in fast: support, criticism, debate, discussion. Today I experienced firsthand the kind of class discrimination that happens every day to countless people who don't have the platform to speak out. I was judged, dismissed, and physically removed from a building simply because I didn't look wealthy enough. This isn't just about me. It's about a culture that values appearance over humanity, that treats dignity as something you have to earn through the right clothes or the right look. I want to be clear. Most of the hotel staff were professional and kind. This was the failure of a few individuals who made assumptions based on my appearance. But those assumptions revealed something deeper. A belief that respect should be conditional, that some people deserve kindness and others don't, based solely on how they look. No one should have to dress a certain way to be treated with basic human decency. The person in worn jeans might be a CEO. They might be a teacher, a parent, someone working 3 jobs to make ends meet. It shouldn't matter. Respect shouldn't come with a price tag. I'm using my platform to say this: we can do better. We must do better. And I hope my experience can spark real conversation about how we treat each other, especially in spaces where wealth and status are assumed to matter more than humanity. Elena read it 3 times. Then she closed the app and put her phone in her pocket. "Ready?" Mason asked. "Ready." They left the suite together, Elena, Mason, Sophia, and Rachel, and headed toward the elevator. Elena didn't know what would happen next, didn't know if her statement would matter or just be another voice in a crowded conversation. But she'd said what she needed to say, and for now, that was enough. The private elevator descended in silence. Elena watched the floor numbers tick downward, her stomach doing uncomfortable things that had nothing to do with the motion. 68, 67, 66. Each number brought them closer to the lobby where yesterday had happened. "We could take the service elevator," Mason said quietly, reading her tension. Elena shook her head. "No, I'm not sneaking out of here like I did something wrong." Rachel squeezed her hand. Sophia was chattering about whether they might see any jellyfish at the aquarium, their planned destination for the morning, blissfully unaware of the knot in Elena's chest. The elevator slowed, stopped. The door slid open onto the lobby. Elena stepped out and immediately felt every eye in the space turn toward her. The lobby looked the same. Same marble floors polished to a mirror shine. Same crystal chandeliers. Same leather furniture arranged in careful conversation clusters. But everything felt different now, charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. A woman near the concierge desk whispered something to her companion. Both of them stared. A businessman waiting for the regular elevators did a visible double-take, his phone halfway out of his pocket. Elena forced herself to keep walking. Mason's hand found the small of her back, steady and warm. "Mrs. Reed." A voice stopped them halfway across the lobby. Elena turned. A young woman in hotel uniform, couldn't be older than 25, stood a few feet away, wringing her hands nervously. Her name tag read Amy Chen, front desk. "I just wanted to say," Amy began, her voice shaking slightly, "I'm so sorry about what happened yesterday. Jennifer trained me when I started here, and I always thought she was professional, but what she did to you was awful. It doesn't represent how most of us feel." Elena felt her throat tighten. "Thank you, Amy. That means a lot. I read your statement this morning, the part about treating everyone with respect regardless of how they look." Amy's hands twisted together. "My mom cleans houses for a living. She wears old clothes to work because she's going to get them dirty anyway. And people treat her like she's invisible sometimes, like she doesn't matter because she doesn't look important." Amy's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "So thank you for saying what you said. It matters to people like my mom who don't have platforms." "Your mom matters," Elena said firmly. "Her work matters. Tell her I said so." Amy nodded, blinking rapidly. "I will. Thank you." She hurried back toward the front desk. Elena watched her go, feeling something loosen in her chest. "See?" Rachel murmured. "You did the right thing." They made it outside without further incident. The Chicago morning was cold and overcast, but at least it had stopped raining. Mason's driver was waiting with the car, an SUV because Sophia needed a car seat, and Mason refused to use anything that didn't have every safety feature known to mankind. The drive to the Shed Aquarium took 20 minutes through downtown traffic. Sophia kept up a running commentary about marine life facts, occasionally pausing to point out interesting architecture or people on the sidewalk. Elena's phone buzzed continuously in her pocket. She ignored it. The aquarium was crowded for a Thursday morning. School groups and families and tourists bundled against the cold. They made their way through the entrance, past the Caribbean reef exhibit where Sophia immediately pressed her face against the glass to watch a sea turtle glide past. "Did you know sea turtles can hold their breath for up to 7 hours?" Sophia said, her breath fogging the glass. "I did not," Mason said. "Most people don't. It's because they can slow their heart rate down to conserve oxygen. It's called bradycardia." "Of course it is," Rachel muttered, grinning. They wandered through the exhibits. Sophia darted from tank to tank, absorbing information from the placards faster than most adults could read them. Elena found herself relaxing despite everything. The dim lighting, the sound of water, the schools of fish moving in synchronized patterns. It was meditative. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out to silence it completely and saw a text from Diane. "Your statement is blowing up. Interview requests from CNN, NBC, Washington Post. How do you want to handle?" Elena stared at the message. Part of her wanted to say yes to everything. Use this moment while people were paying attention. Make it mean something. But another part just wanted to watch jellyfish with Sophia. She typed back, "No interviews today. Maybe next week. We'll let you know." "Work stuff?" Mason asked. "Diane wants to set up interviews. I told her not today." "Good." They moved to the jellyfish exhibit, Sophia's favorite. The cylindrical tanks glowed with ethereal light, jellyfish pulsing through the water like living parachutes. Sophia stood transfixed, watching a Pacific sea nettle drift past. "They're basically brainless," Sophia said. "No brain, no heart, no bones, just a nerve net and instinct." But they've survived for over 500 million years, longer than almost anything else. Sometimes not thinking too hard is an evolutionary advantage, Rachel said, shooting a meaningful look at Elena. Elena stuck her tongue out at her. They spent 2 hours at the aquarium. By the time they emerged back into the gray Chicago afternoon, Sophia had memorized at least 15 new facts and was already planning their next visit to see the beluga whales when they weren't napping. Lunch? Mason suggested. Pizza, Sophia voted immediately. There's a place near here, Rachel said, unless you want somewhere fancy. Pizza sounds perfect, Elena said. The restaurant was crowded and loud and gloriously normal. They crammed into a booth, ordered more food than 4 people could reasonably eat, and talked about everything except what had happened yesterday. Sophia was in the middle of explaining the difference between squid and cuttlefish when Elena's phone rang. Not a text buzz. An actual call. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Probably a reporter, she said, declining it. It rang again immediately. Different unknown number. Then a text from a number she didn't recognize. Miss Brooks, this is Vanessa Kim from NBC News. I'd love to speak with you about your experience and the broader implications for the hospitality industry. Would you have time for a brief call? Elena showed Mason the message. You don't have to respond, he said. I know. But the thing was, part of her wanted to take this moment and shape it into something that mattered beyond just her personal humiliation. Can we talk about it later? Elena asked. After lunch? Of course. They finished eating. Sophia got marinara sauce on her face and shirt. Rachel told increasingly ridiculous stories about her job at a tech startup where apparently no one understood how anything worked. Mason stole food off everyone's plates because he always ordered the wrong thing and then wanted what everyone else had. It was normal. Blessedly, wonderfully normal. Until they were walking back to the car and a woman on the sidewalk stopped directly in front of them. You're her, the woman said. Not a question, an accusation. Elena's stomach dropped. The woman was maybe 40, wearing a business suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Professional, put together, and currently looking at Elena like she was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. Excuse me? Elena said. You're the woman from the hotel, the one claiming she was discriminated against. The woman's lip curled. I saw your statement, saw the videos, and honestly, I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Mason stepped forward, positioning himself partially in front of Elena. I think you should keep walking. I have a right to my opinion. The woman's voice was getting louder. People were starting to notice. She shows up to a 5-star hotel looking like a homeless person and then acts shocked when security questions her? Give me a break. She's my wife, Mason said, his voice deadly quiet. She has every right to enter my hotel wearing whatever she wants. And you need to leave. Now. Or what? You'll have me dragged out too? The woman laughed, sharp and mean. You people with your victim complexes, always looking for something to be offended about. Rachel had pulled Sophia back, shielding her from the confrontation. Sophia's eyes were wide, confused. Elena felt rage building in her chest, hot and bright and demanding release. But she also saw the phone, saw another bystander filming this encounter, saw how this would look if she lost her temper. You're entitled to your opinion, Elena said, forcing her voice to stay level. But maybe don't share it with strangers on the street, especially in front of a child. She gestured to Sophia. The woman glanced at Sophia, and something flickered across her face. Shame, maybe, but it hardened quickly back into defensiveness. Just saying what everyone's thinking, the woman muttered. Then she walked away, heels clicking against the sidewalk. Elena stood frozen, adrenaline dumping into her system with nowhere to go. You okay? Mason's hand found her shoulder. I'm fine. Elena, I said I'm fine. Her voice came out sharper than intended. She took a breath. Sorry, I'm fine. Let's just go. They made it to the car. Sophia climbed into her car seat, unusually quiet. Elena? Sophia's small voice came from the back seat as Mason started driving. Why was that lady so mean to you? Elena twisted in her seat to look at her stepdaughter. Sometimes people disagree about things and they express it in not very nice ways. But she said you looked homeless. That's not true. You don't look homeless. I know, sweetie. And even if someone was homeless, you shouldn't be mean to them. Miss Anderson says everyone deserves kindness. Miss Anderson is right. So that lady was wrong. Yes, that lady was wrong. Sophia processed this with her usual seriousness. Are more people going to be mean to you? Elena glanced at Mason. He gave a small shrug that said, your call on how honest to be. Maybe, Elena said. Some people think what happened to me wasn't a big deal. They think I'm making too much fuss about it. Are you? I don't think so. But that's for each person to decide. Well, I think those people are factually incorrect, Sophia declared. What happened was mean and wrong, and they shouldn't have done it. Thank you, sweetie. Also, that lady shouldn't have said that in front of me. I'm 7, not stupid. I know what's going on. Rachel snorted with laughter from the front seat. They drove back to the hotel in relative silence. Elena's phone had stopped buzzing quite so frantically, but when she checked it, she found her statement had been shared over 100,000 times now. The replies were a mix of support, criticism, and people arguing with each other about class, privilege, and whether Elena was overreacting. One reply in particular caught her eye. Easy to make statements about discrimination when you're still rich and comfortable. Try being someone who actually gets discriminated against every single day with no platform to complain about it. Elena stared at that one for a long time. The person had a point. She was rich and comfortable. One bad experience didn't erase her privilege, didn't put her on the same level as people who face this kind of treatment constantly. But did that mean her experience didn't matter? Did that mean she shouldn't speak up? She didn't know. Back at the suite, Sophia settled in with her drawings and a documentary about the deep sea. Rachel made more coffee. Mason disappeared into the study to take calls about the hotel's new discrimination policy. Elena sat on the couch with her laptop, finally ready to face the full scope of what her statement had unleashed. The news coverage was extensive. CNN had run a segment about class discrimination in luxury hospitality. The Washington Post published an op-ed about how the incident revealed deeper problems in how service workers are trained. Forbes ran a piece analyzing the business implications for the Grand Meridian chain. Some of it was thoughtful, some of it was sensationalized. All of it felt weird to read, seeing her own trauma dissected and analyzed by strangers. Then she found the other side. A blog post titled "Elena Brooks and the Victimhood Olympics" argued she was leveraging a minor incident for attention. A YouTube video with 200,000 views claimed the whole thing was staged for publicity. Twitter threads picked apart everything from her clothing choices to her statement's word count, finding fault with all of it. And the comments. The comments were brutal. Rich people really think being questioned is the same as oppression, LMAO. She could end world hunger with her money, but instead cries because a security guard did his job. This is what happens when privileged people experience one day of what poor people live every day. They think they're revolutionaries. Elena closed the laptop. Don't read the comments, Rachel said from the kitchen doorway. Nothing good ever comes from reading the comments. Too late. Yeah, I can see that. Rachel sat down beside her. Look, people are going to have opinions. That's inevitable. You can't control what strangers on the internet think. I know. But you can control what you do next. And you have options. Rachel counted on her fingers. Option 1. Retreat. Delete your statement, go quiet, let this blow over. Option 2. Engage. Do the interviews, keep the conversation going, try to shape it. Option 3. Something in between. Selective engagement when you feel like it, silence when you don't. What would you do? Elena asked. Honestly, I'd probably rage tweet at everyone being mean and make it worse. Rachel grinned, which is why you shouldn't ask me for advice. Fair point. Mason emerged from the study, rubbing his eyes. Richard just sent over the employee audit results. And 12 people witnessed what happened to you and did nothing. Didn't call it in, didn't intervene, just stood there. His jaw clenched. I'm requiring all 12 to go through mandatory retraining on discrimination and bystander intervention. If any of them refuse, they're done. That seems fair. Fair would be firing all of them. But I'm trying to be measured about this. Mason sat down on Elena's other side. I also heard from the head of the National Hotel Association. They want to discuss implementing industry-wide training standards based on what happened. Use this as a catalyst for actual change. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Really? Really? They're not happy about the bad publicity, but they recognize there's a real problem that needs addressing. Mason pulled out his phone and showed her an email. They want you involved in developing the standards, if you're interested. Elena read the email twice. The Hotel Association wanted her expertise as a CEO who'd experienced discrimination firsthand. They were proposing a task force to develop new training protocols, sensitivity standards, and accountability measures. This is huge, Rachel said, reading over Elena's shoulder. It could be, Mason agreed, or it could be performative corporate nonsense that goes nowhere. Hard to tell at this stage. But if it's real, Elena trailed off, thinking, if it's real, this could actually change how millions of people are treated in hotels across the country. That's the idea. Elena's phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. Her board chairman. I should take this, she said. She stepped into the bedroom for privacy. Thomas, hi. Elena, I wanted to check in. How are you holding up? Thomas Brennan's voice was warm, fatherly. He'd been her mentor when she first started in manufacturing, had championed her rise to CEO. I'm managing. It's been overwhelming. I can imagine. Listen, the board met this morning. We wanted you to know we're behind you 100%. Whatever you need, time off, resources, support, dealing with media, it's yours. Thank you. That means a lot. I also wanted to mention, we've been fielding inquiries from other companies about their own discrimination policies. Apparently your statement struck a nerve. Several CEOs are asking how we handle these issues at our facilities. Elena sat down on the edge of the bed. And how do we handle them? Better than hotels, apparently, but probably not as well as we should. Thomas paused. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in developing a comprehensive anti-discrimination framework for our company, something that could serve as a model for the industry. You want me to turn my traumatic experience into a corporate policy? I want you to turn your traumatic experience into meaningful change. If you're up for it, no pressure. Elena thought about Amy at the front desk, talking about her mother who cleaned houses. Thought about all the people who face this kind of judgment every single day without platforms or power to fight back. I'm up for it, she said. Good. We'll discuss details when you're back in the office. For now, just focus on taking care of yourself. They hung up. Elena sat in the quiet bedroom, processing. In less than 24 hours, her worst day had somehow transformed into multiple opportunities for actual systemic change. The Hotel Association wanted new standards. Her own company wanted a comprehensive framework. The media attention, however uncomfortable, was forcing conversations that needed to happen. Maybe Mason was right. Maybe her suffering could mean something. She returned to the living room where Sophia was explaining to Rachel the difference between anglerfish and viperfish, both of which were apparently terrifying. Everything okay? Mason asked. Thomas wants me to develop anti-discrimination policies for the company. That's great. Is it? Or am I just commodifying my trauma for corporate purposes? Can it be both? Rachel suggested. You can acknowledge that it's kind of weird to turn your bad experience into policy work, while also recognizing that policy work might prevent other people from having bad experiences. Elena considered this. I guess that makes sense. Of course it makes sense. I'm very wise. Rachel stood and stretched. Okay, I should probably head to my actual hotel and let you people have family time. Plus I have calls I've been ignoring and my boss is going to kill me. You didn't have to come, Elena said. Yeah, I did. You needed me, so I came. That's how this works. Rachel pulled Elena into a hug. Call me if you need anything. I'm here through the weekend. Thank you for everything. After Rachel left, the suite felt quieter. Sophia had moved on to a different documentary, something about bioluminescence. Mason was back on his laptop, presumably dealing with more hotel business. Elena opened her email and found the message from the Hotel Association. Read it more carefully this time. They wanted to meet next week. Wanted to discuss concrete steps for industry change. Wanted her input on training protocols, hiring standards, and accountability measures. It was real. This was actually happening. Her phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Good morning, America wants you for Monday. Can we make it work? Elena stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, yes, let's do it. If she was going to do this, if she was going to turn her worst day into something meaningful, she might as well commit fully. The next 3 days blurred together. More interview requests, more news coverage, more strangers on the internet having opinions about her life. But also, messages from people thanking her for speaking up, emails from hospitality workers sharing their own stories of witnessing discrimination, a handwritten letter from a woman who'd been thrown out of a restaurant for nursing her baby, saying Elena's statement made her feel less alone. Saturday afternoon, Elena stood in front of her closet trying to decide what to wear for the Good Morning America interview on Monday. "The irony isn't lost on me," she said to Mason, who was watching from the bed, stressing about clothing after making a whole statement about how appearance shouldn't matter. "You're allowed to want to look professional on national television. That's different from thinking you deserve to be mistreated for wearing jeans." "Is it?" "Yes." Mason stood and came to stand beside her. "What happened to you was wrong because they judged your worth based on your appearance. You choosing to wear business attire for an interview is you making a strategic decision about how you want to present yourself. See the difference?" "I guess." "Also, you could show up in sweatpants and you'd still be brilliant. The clothes don't make you credible. You make you credible." Elena leaned against him. "How are you always so reasonable? Years of practice with an extremely logical 7-year-old who questions everything." "Fair point." They stood there for a moment, Elena's head on Mason's shoulder, surrounded by clothes that suddenly felt like they carried too much weight. "I'm scared," Elena admitted quietly. "Of what?" "That I'm going to mess this up, say the wrong thing, make it worse instead of better." She pulled back to look at him. "What if I go on TV and just come across as some privileged CEO complaining about first world problems?" "Then you'll deal with it. But I don't think that's going to happen." "How can you be sure?" "Because I know you. You're thoughtful and careful, and you actually care about making things better, not just about being right." Mason's hands framed her face. "You're going to do great." Elena wanted to believe him. Sunday evening, she practiced her talking points with Rachel over video call. Rachel played hostile interviewer, throwing aggressive questions designed to trip her up. "Aren't you being hypocritical, Ms. Brooks? You run a manufacturing company that pays minimum wage to factory workers, but you're upset about being judged for your clothes." "Our starting wage is actually $3 above minimum," Elena countered, "and we offer full benefits including health care and education assistance. But you're right that I have privilege. I'm not claiming to be the most oppressed person in America. I'm claiming that discrimination based on appearance is wrong regardless of who experiences it." "Good," Rachel said, dropping the hostile persona. "That's good. Acknowledge privilege, pivot to the actual point." They went through 24 potential questions. By the end, Elena felt slightly more prepared and significantly more exhausted. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. The car service picked them up at 5:30 a.m. for the 7:15 interview slot. Sophia had wanted to come, but they'd convinced her that watching from the hotel with breakfast was better than sitting in a cold studio. The Good Morning America studios were exactly what Elena expected. Lots of lights, lots of people rushing around with headsets and clipboards, lots of barely controlled chaos. A production assistant led her to hair and makeup. Elena sat in the chair while strangers did things to her face and asked if she was nervous. "Terrified," she admitted. "You'll be great," the makeup artist said. "Just breathe and be yourself." Easy for her to say. 20 minutes later, Elena was sitting across from Jennifer Park, one of GMA's main anchors. The studio lights were blindingly bright. Cameras surrounded them from multiple angles. Elena could see Mason in the wings, giving her a thumbs up. "And we're live in 5, 4, 3. The floor director counted down silently for the last 2 numbers. Jennifer Park's professional smile clicked into place. This morning we're joined by Elena Brooks, the CEO, whose viral confrontation at a Chicago luxury hotel has sparked a national conversation about class discrimination and how we judge people based on appearance. Elena, thank you for being here." "Thank you for having me," Elena said, proud that her voice came out steady. "Let's start with what happened. Can you walk us through that day?" Elena took a breath and began. Elena told the story again, sitting under bright studio lights with cameras capturing every micro-expression. She described walking into the lobby exhausted from travel, described Jennifer's dismissive look, described the security guards grabbing her arms. Her voice stayed level, professional, but she didn't sanitize it either, didn't pretend it hadn't hurt. Jennifer Park leaned forward slightly. "When those guards grabbed you, what went through your mind? Disbelief mostly. I kept thinking, this can't actually be happening. I told them who I was. I offered to prove it. And they just didn't care. They'd already decided I was lying based purely on how I looked. Your husband, Mason Reed, owns that hotel. The irony must have been striking. The irony was horrifying, Elena corrected, because it meant this wasn't about me being connected to the owner or being a CEO or having money. It was about the fact that I didn't perform wealth the way they expected. And if it could happen to me, with all my privilege and resources, what does it say about how we treat people who don't have those advantages? Jennifer consulted her notes. Some critics have said you're overreacting, that security was just doing their job. What do you say to that? Elena had prepared for this question, had practiced the answer a dozen times with Rachel, but sitting here with millions of people watching, she abandoned the practiced response and spoke from her gut. Security's job is to keep people safe, not to profile them. There was nothing about my behavior that suggested I was a threat. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't trying to sneak in. I walked up to the desk, identified myself, and asked for a key card. The only suspicious thing about me was that I wore old jeans. Elena paused. And honestly, even if I had been some random person off the street trying to talk my way into a luxury suite, the appropriate response is still not to physically drag someone out of a building while they're asking you to stop. You've since released a statement calling for industry-wide changes. Can you talk about that? I've been in conversations with the National Hotel Association about developing new training standards. The goal is to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else, not just in luxury hotels, but across the entire hospitality industry. Elena felt herself settling into the interview now, the nervousness fading. Because here's the thing. This happens every day. People get judged, dismissed, treated poorly because they don't look the part. Sometimes it's classism. Sometimes it's racism or sexism or ableism. Sometimes it's just humans making snap judgments based on appearance. But whatever the cause, it's wrong. And we can do better. Your own company has announced new anti-discrimination policies as well. We're developing a comprehensive framework that addresses bias in all its forms, not just in customer service, but in hiring, promotion, workplace culture, everything. It's not enough to say discrimination is bad. We need concrete systems and accountability measures. Elena shifted in her chair. And I'll be honest, I'm learning as I go. I didn't have all these answers before this happened. I thought my company was doing fine, but this experience made me question whether fine is good enough. Jennifer Park glanced at her producer, then back to Elena. We're almost out of time, but I have to ask, how are you doing personally? This has been an incredibly public ordeal. Elena considered lying, saying she was fine, she was strong, she was moving forward, all the things people expected to hear. Instead, she said, I'm struggling. Some days I'm angry, some days I'm sad. Some days I can't look at social media without feeling sick, but I'm also hopeful because thousands of people have reached out to share their own stories, and every single one of them said the same thing. Thank you for making me feel less alone. That matters more than the people calling me privileged or saying I'm overreacting. Elena Brooks, thank you for being here and for sharing your story. Thank you for having me. The camera's cut. Jennifer's professional smile softened into something more genuine. That was great, she said. Really powerful stuff. Elena managed a shaky smile. Thanks. I was terrified. Couldn't tell. The production assistant led Elena back to the green room where Mason was waiting. He pulled her into a hug the moment the door closed. You were perfect, he said against her hair. I fumbled the question about critics. You were honest. That's better than perfect. Elena's phone was already buzzing with notifications. She pulled it out and saw messages flooding in. From Diane, crushing it. From Rachel, you made me cry and I never cry. That's how good you were. From Thomas, the board is watching. We're all incredibly proud. And from people she'd never met. Thank you for this. You gave words to something I've felt my whole life. My daughter watched this with me, and it started the most important conversation we've ever had. It's happening, Elena said, scrolling through the messages. People are actually listening. Of course they are. You gave them something real. The car ride back to the hotel was quiet. Elena felt wrung out, emotionally exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the early morning. She just laid herself bare in front of millions of people, had admitted to struggling, to being hurt, to not having all the answers. It felt vulnerable and terrifying and somehow right. Back at the suite, Sophia ambushed them at the door. "You were on TV! We watched! You were so good!" Sophia was practically vibrating with excitement. "Mrs. Patterson from next door came over to watch with us because her TV is broken, and she said you were inspiring." "Mrs. Patterson said that?" Elena asked. "Well, she said that woman has guts, but I think that's the same thing as inspiring." Mason laughed. "Close enough." They settled into the living room. Elena's phone wouldn't stop buzzing, but she put it on silent and focused on Sophia's retelling of the interview, which included several editorializations about how the lady asking questions should have let Elena talk more. Around noon, Mason's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted. "It's Richard. I should take this." He stepped into the study. Elena could hear the murmur of conversation, but not the words. When he emerged 10 minutes later, his face was unreadable. "What happened?" Elena asked. "Jennifer Morrison wants to meet with you, the manager who started all this." Elena's stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "She didn't say exactly. Just that she'd like to apologize in person if you're willing." Mason's jaw clenched. "I told Richard absolutely not. That you don't owe her anything and she's not entitled to your time or forgiveness." "What did Richard say?" "That it's entirely your decision, but Jennifer seemed genuine." Elena sat with this information. Part of her wanted nothing to do with Jennifer Morrison, wanted to never see her face again, never think about her again. But another part was curious. Curious about what Jennifer would say. Curious whether the apology would be genuine or performative. "I'll meet her," Elena said. Mason's expression darkened. "Elena, I want to, not for her, for me. I need to look her in the eye and understand what she was thinking." "You don't owe her understanding." "I know, but I want it anyway." Elena reached for his hand. "Come with me. You don't have to say anything. Just be there." Mason looked like he wanted to argue, but finally he nodded. "Okay. But the second you want to leave, we leave. No explanations, no apologies. We just go." "Deal." Richard arranged the meeting for Tuesday afternoon in a private conference room at the hotel. Neutral territory, though calling Mason's hotel neutral felt like a stretch. Elena dressed carefully. Not the jeans and cardigan from that day, but not a power suit either. Simple black pants, a gray sweater. Professional but not performative. Mason insisted on having hotel security present, stationed just outside the conference room. "I'm not taking chances," he said. Jennifer Morrison arrived exactly on time. She looked smaller than Elena remembered. Thinner. Dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She wore civilian clothes, not the hotel uniform, and carried herself like someone who'd had all the confidence knocked out of them. They sat across from each other at the long conference table. Mason stood against the wall, arms crossed, radiating protective fury. Jennifer's hands twisted together on the table. "Thank you for agreeing to see me. I know you didn't have to." Elena said nothing, just waited. "I've been trying to figure out what to say, how to apologize, but everything I come up with sounds hollow." Jennifer's voice shook slightly. "What I did was inexcusable. I judged you based on your appearance. I dismissed you when you told me who you were. I called security instead of making one simple phone call that would have resolved everything. And then I mocked you, in front of guests, in front of other employees." "Why?" Elena asked quietly. "Why did I do it?" "Yes. I've been trying to understand. What were you thinking when you looked at me and decided I was lying?" Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Honestly, I was thinking about a woman who came in 3 months ago. She was dressed nicely, had a sob story about being the owner's cousin, asked for a room. I believed her, gave her a key card. Turned out she was running a scam, got into the room, stole everything valuable, disappeared." Jennifer wiped at her eyes. "I got written up for that. Was told I was too trusting, needed to be more skeptical, couldn't take people at their word." "So you overcorrected," Elena said. "I overcorrected so far I became someone I don't even recognize." Jennifer's voice broke completely. "I have a daughter. She's 12. She saw the videos, saw her mother treating someone cruelly, came to me crying, asking why I was so mean to that lady." Fresh tears spilled down Jennifer's face. I had to explain to my own child that I made a terrible mistake, that I let fear and judgment turn me into someone cruel. And you know what she said? She said, "I thought you always told me to be kind to everyone." Elena felt something crack in her chest. She didn't want to feel sympathy for Jennifer, didn't want to humanize her, but that crack was there anyway. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," Jennifer continued, reading Elena's expression. "I'm telling you because you asked why. And the answer is, I was scared and cynical, and I let that turn me into exactly the kind of person I hate." She looked directly at Elena. "You deserved better. You deserved basic human decency, and I failed completely. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know sorry doesn't undo the humiliation or the pain, but I need you to know that I'm sorry." The conference room was silent, except for the muffled sounds of the hotel beyond the walls. "Are you expecting me to forgive you?" Elena asked. "No, I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted you to hear me say it." Elena studied Jennifer's face. The tears were real. The remorse appeared genuine, but genuine remorse didn't erase what had happened. "I appreciate you saying this," Elena said carefully, "and I believe that you're sorry, but I can't absolve you. What you did hurt me, humiliated me, made me question my own worth. That doesn't just go away because you apologized." "I understand. I hope you learn from this. I hope you teach your daughter better than you acted that day. I hope you become the kind of person who treats everyone with dignity regardless of how they look." Elena paused. "But I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And I need you to be okay with that." Jennifer nodded, tears streaming freely now. "I am. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "It's not about deserving. It's about me needing time to heal." Elena stood. "Thank you for coming, for being honest. But I think we're done here." Jennifer stood as well, wiping her eyes. "For what it's worth, I've been following the work you're doing. The policy changes, the industry standards. It's important. It's making a difference." "That's not for you," Elena said. "That's for everyone else who might be treated the way you treated me, so they don't have to go through what I went through." "I know, but still, thank you." Jennifer left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Elena stood staring at that closed door, feeling things she couldn't quite name. Mason crossed to her. "You okay?" "I don't know. Ask me tomorrow." They went back upstairs. Elena felt wrung out all over again, but differently this time. Meeting Jennifer had been harder than the interview, more complicated. The interview had clear sides, victim and perpetrator, right and wrong. But Jennifer crying about her daughter, explaining her fears, apologizing with what seemed like genuine remorse, that muddied everything. "She was still wrong," Elena said to Mason that night as they got ready for bed. "Completely wrong," Mason agreed. "And I don't have to forgive her." "Not at all." "But I feel bad anyway." Mason pulled her close. "That's because you're a good person with empathy. But empathy doesn't require forgiveness. You can understand why someone did something and still hold them accountable for doing it." Elena buried her face in his shoulder. "When did this all get so complicated?" "Around the time you decided to turn a personal trauma into systemic change. That's when it stopped being simple." The next 6 weeks were a blur of meetings and interviews and policy development. Elena worked with the Hotel Association on new training standards, developed comprehensive anti-discrimination frameworks for her own company, spoke at conferences about unconscious bias and the importance of treating people with dignity regardless of appearance. The media attention gradually faded, as Mason had predicted. New scandals emerged. The news cycle moved on. But the work continued. Elena implemented quarterly audits at her manufacturing facilities to ensure fair treatment of all employees, set up anonymous reporting systems for discrimination complaints, required every manager to complete extensive bias training. Mason did the same across his hotel empire, but went further. He established a foundation that offered hospitality training to people from disadvantaged backgrounds, created scholarship programs for workers trying to advance in the industry, made diversity and inclusion metrics part of executive performance reviews. The changes weren't perfect. Nothing ever was. They had setbacks and resistance and moments where it felt like they were fighting uphill, but they kept pushing. 3 months after the incident, Elena received an email from Amy Chen, the young front desk clerk who'd apologized that first morning. Amy had been promoted to assistant manager and was leading the implementation of the new discrimination policies at the Chicago Grand Meridian. The email included a photo of Amy with her mother, who'd come to see her daughter's workplace for the first time. The caption read, "She said she finally understands why I'm proud to work here. Thank you for making that possible." Elena showed the email to Mason. He smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. "That's what it's about," he said. "Not the big policy announcements. These small moments where someone's life actually gets better." "Think we're making a difference?" Elena asked. "I know we are." 4 months in, Elena was invited to testify before a congressional subcommittee on labor practices and discrimination in the service industry. She sat in a wood-paneled room in Washington, told her story again to a room full of politicians, and proposed specific legislative changes that would protect workers and customers alike. 2 senators thanked her personally afterward. One of them said her testimony had changed his perspective on class discrimination entirely. It wasn't a law yet. Might never become a law. But it was something. The first anniversary of the incident arrived in November. Elena had thought about this day for weeks, unsure how to mark it. Mason suggested they ignore it completely. Rachel suggested they throw a party celebrating how far they'd come. Sophia suggested they visit the aquarium again because jellyfish always made Elena happy. In the end, Elena did something she hadn't planned. She went back to the Grand Meridian Hotel wearing the exact same outfit from that day. The faded jeans with the rip near the knee, the oversized navy cardigan, the stained white sneakers. Mason tried to talk her out of it. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. I'm not proving anything. I'm reclaiming something." She walked into the lobby at almost the same time. Mid-afternoon, gray November sky outside. The space looked identical. Same marble floors, same crystal chandeliers, same careful arrangement of wealth and luxury. But everything felt different. The receptionist, a young man Elena didn't recognize, looked up and smiled warmly. "Good afternoon. Welcome to the Grand Meridian. How can I help you?" No judgment in his eyes, no assessment of her clothing, just genuine welcome. "I'm just visiting," Elena said. "My husband owns the place." "Oh, you're Mrs. Reed." The receptionist's smile widened. "It's an honor to meet you. Mr. Reed talks about you all the time. Is there anything I can get for you? Coffee? Water?" "No, thank you. I'm just being here for a minute." "Take your time." Elena walked through the lobby slowly, sat on one of the leather couches, watched guests come and go, watched staff interact with them, polite, professional, respectful, regardless of whether people wore suits or sweatpants. A woman in yoga clothes and sneakers approached the desk. Elena tensed slightly, watching. The receptionist greeted her with the same warm smile he'd given Elena, checked her in without a second glance at her casual attire, wished her a pleasant stay. The woman never knew she was being treated differently than she might have been a year ago. Never knew she'd benefited from policies born out of someone else's pain. But Elena knew. She sat there for an hour, just observing, watching her husband's employees treat people like people, watching the new normal they'd fought so hard to create. When she finally stood to leave, Amy Chen was crossing the lobby. She spotted Elena and her face lit up. "Mrs. Reed, I didn't know you were here." "Just visiting. Wanted to see how things were going." "Really well, actually. The new training protocols are making a huge difference. We had an incident last week where a guest tried to complain about another guest's appearance, and the staff shut it down immediately, said everyone is welcome here regardless of how they dress." Amy beamed. "A year ago, that wouldn't have happened." "A year ago, I would have been the one being complained about," Elena said. "And that would never happen now. Not on my watch." Amy's expression turned serious. "I wanted you to know I use what happened to you in every training session I lead. Not to embarrass anyone, but to show why this matters. Why we can't make assumptions. Why dignity isn't negotiable." Elena felt tears threatening. "Thank you for that. Thank you for turning something awful into something meaningful." They hugged. Elena left the hotel with something lighter in her chest than she'd carried in months. That evening, the whole family gathered for dinner at the suite. Helena, Mason, Sophia, and Rachel, who'd flown in for the anniversary. They didn't talk about the incident directly. Instead, they talked about Sophia's latest marine biology obsession, nautiluses, apparently, which were like octopuses, but with shells. They talked about Rachel's new relationship with someone she'd met at a coffee shop, They talked about Mason's plans to open 3 new hotels in cities that desperately needed economic development. Normal conversation. Normal life. After Sophia went to bed, the 3 adults sat on the balcony despite the cold, wrapped in blankets, looking out at Chicago's lights. "You changed something," Rachel said quietly. "You actually changed something real." "We changed something," Elena corrected. "It wasn't just me, but you started it. You could have stayed quiet, could have accepted the apologies and moved on. Instead, you made it matter." Rachel raised her wine glass. "To Elena Brooks, who wore old jeans to a fancy hotel and accidentally started a revolution." "It wasn't a revolution," Elena protested. "Fine. A reform movement. Still counts." They toasted. Elena sipped her wine and thought about the past year, about the pain and humiliation and anger, about Jennifer Morrison crying about her daughter, about Amy Chen leading training sessions, about anonymous people sending messages saying Elena's story had changed their lives. It hadn't been worth it exactly. She'd still rather none of it had happened. Still wished she could have walked into that lobby and been treated with basic respect from the start. But since it had happened, since she'd been dragged across marble floors while strangers filmed and laughed, at least she'd managed to wring something meaningful from it. "I think I'm ready to forgive her," Elena said suddenly. Mason and Rachel both looked at her. "Jennifer Morrison?" Mason asked. "Yeah, I'm not going to reach out or anything. Don't need to make it a whole thing, but I think I'm ready to let go of the anger." Elena pulled the blanket tighter. "She made a terrible mistake. She's paying for it, and holding on to rage about it isn't serving me anymore." "That's very mature of you," Rachel said. "Or maybe I'm just tired of being angry. It's exhausting." "That's allowed too." They sat in comfortable silence, 3 people who'd weathered a storm together and come out changed but intact. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. "Board approved the new discrimination framework unanimously. Company-wide implementation starts next month. Well done." She showed Mason the message. "Proud of you," he said quietly. "Proud of us," Elena corrected. "None of this happens without you. I just supported you. You did the hard work. Supporting me was the hard work, especially when I was spiraling or reading comment sections at 2 a.m. or convinced the whole world hated me." Mason's arm settled around her shoulders. "For the record, I'd do it again. All of it. Support you through worse if it came to that." "Let's hope it doesn't." Agreed. 2 weeks later, Elena was invited to speak at a hospitality industry conference in Las Vegas. The ballroom held 3,000 people, hotel managers, executives, policymakers, all there to discuss the future of customer service. Elena stood at the podium looking out at thousands of faces and felt the familiar flutter of nerves. Then she saw Mason in the front row, giving her a thumbs up. Saw Amy Chen sitting with a group of young hotel workers. Saw Thomas and several of her board members scattered throughout the crowd. She took a breath and began. "A year ago, I was dragged out of a hotel for the crime of wearing old jeans." The room went silent. "I was humiliated, traumatized, angry, and I had a choice. I could let that experience define me as a victim, or I could use it to change how we think about dignity and respect in this industry." She clicked to the first slide, a photo of the lobby, not from the incident, just the empty space. "This is where it happened. Beautiful, isn't it? Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, all the markers of luxury and wealth. But what makes a space truly luxurious isn't the furnishings. It's how people are treated when they enter it." For the next 45 minutes, Elena walked them through everything. The incident, the aftermath, the policy changes, the impact. She showed data on discrimination complaints before and after the new training, shared testimonials from workers and guests, outlined concrete steps every hotel could implement immediately. She didn't sugarcoat it. Talked about the resistance they'd faced, the employees who'd pushed back against the changes, the guests who'd complained about new policies, the reality that changing culture was messy and hard and ongoing. "This isn't a success story with a neat ending," Elena concluded. "It's a work in progress. We're still learning, still adjusting, still making mistakes, but we're committed to the principle that every single person who walks through our doors deserves respect, whether they're wearing Armani or thrift store jeans, whether they're there for a $5,000 suite or applying for a housekeeping job. Dignity isn't negotiable." The applause started before she finished her last sentence and built to something that felt like thunder. Elena stood at that podium, overwhelmed, and understood something she hadn't quite grasped before. She'd spent a year turning her worst day into something meaningful. But it wasn't just about policy changes or training protocols or media coverage. It was about proving to herself that suffering didn't have to be meaningless, that pain could be transformed into purpose if you were willing to do the work. The woman in old jeans who'd been dragged across a lobby had become someone who changed an industry. Not because she was perfect or had all the answers, but because she refused to let cruelty have the last word. That night, back in their hotel suite, Elena sat with Sophia helping her with homework. Math problems about fractions. Nothing profound or important. Just normal life. "Elena?" Sophia said, looking up from her worksheet. "Yeah? You know how you got treated badly at Dad's hotel? I remember. I'm glad you talked about it instead of just being sad." Sophia's expression was serious. "Miss Anderson says when bad things happen, we can either let them make us smaller or we can grow bigger around them. I think you grew bigger." Elena's throat tightened. "Thank you, sweetie. That's a really smart observation. I know I'm very wise for 7. Almost 8, Mason corrected from across the room. "Almost 8 and very wise," Sophia amended. She returned to her fractions. "Also, I decided I want to study cuttlefish specifically, not all cephalopods. They're more interesting." "Of course they are," Elena said, smiling. She helped Sophia with the rest of her homework. Later, after Sophia was asleep, Elena found herself standing at the window looking out at the Las Vegas Strip. All those lights, all those people, all those lives intersecting and diverging. Somewhere out there, someone was being judged for their appearance, being dismissed, disrespected, treated like they didn't matter. Elena couldn't fix all of it, couldn't undo every instance of discrimination or cruelty, but she'd changed a few policies, trained a few thousand people, given voice to those who felt unheard, and maybe that was enough. Not perfect, not complete, but enough. Mason came to stand beside her. "What are you thinking about?" "How far we've come." And how far we still have to go." "That sounds exhausting." "It is, but I think I'm okay with that." Elena leaned into him. "Some things are worth being exhausted for." They stood there together, two people who'd weathered an unexpected storm and emerged with scars but also purpose. The lights of Vegas glittered below. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and complicated. But they'd face it the way they'd faced everything else. Together, imperfectly, trying their best to make things a little better than they'd found them. And maybe, Elena thought, that was the only real victory that mattered. Not dramatic transformations or perfect solutions, just the steady, unglamorous work of being a little more human to each other, of seeing past appearances to the person underneath, of choosing kindness even when it wasn't convenient. The woman in faded jeans had learned that lesson the hard way, but she'd learned it, and now she was teaching it to anyone willing to listen. That, she decided, was worth every difficult moment of the past year. Mason's hand found hers in the darkness. "Ready for tomorrow?" he asked. "Always," Elena said, and she meant it.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If this story touched your heart or inspired you in any way, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Your support helps us create more emotional stories filled with hope, family, second chances, and unforgettable life lessons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. See you in the next video.